Again, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining IAM Online in April. If you were here to learn about our collaboration success program and kind of all of the support that we provide with that service, you are in the right place. So we have a really fun hour ready and lined up for you. This is our monthly webinar hosted by InCommon and Internet 2. My name is Netta Caligari, InCommon Community Success Manager, and I'm happy to be hosting this hour that we have here today. In a minute, I am going to turn it over to our moderator, Erin Murtha, who's our director of the InCommon Academy and really has a lot of great services and programs and resources that are available to help you on your identity and access management journey. So you'll definitely hear in depth about one of those today and from our community as well and their experience. But before we dive in, just some logistics. We will be recording this webinar and that will be shared with everyone who registered for this event afterwards. So you can keep a lookout if you would like to share it with other colleagues or would like to review. We also have kind of a Q&A format for today, but we do also welcome any questions that you may have. So if anything comes up, please feel free to use the chat, post it there. We'll be keeping a lookout and just kind of moderating that. And if we can get to your questions, we absolutely will, just to make sure we address anything outstanding that you have on your mind in regards to the Collaboration Success Program. So with that said, I will go ahead and turn it over to Erin to introduce our topic today and our presenters.
Cool. All right, thanks, Netta. So as Netta said, we're here to talk a little bit about the InCommon Collaboration Success Program. I'll be giving a brief overview of the program, but the highlights are our superstars here. We've got 3 panelists joining us. We have UT Austin, UNC Charlotte, and SLAC, the National Accelerator Lab. And I'll have everybody introduce themselves in just a couple minutes. But I'd like to give a little bit of an overview about some of the different offerings that InCommon has to help folks with their learning and collaboration. We have a very broad range of engagement opportunities for the IAM community at large. We have learning opportunities that are available from those who are new to IAM or the InCommon Federation, or possibly both. If you look over to the left of this chart, you'll see Basecamp is featured here. That's one of our events that's coming up June 6th through the 10th. It's a great opportunity for anyone, again, new to IAM, InCommon, the Federation, or anybody who wants a review of that. And that's coming up June 6th through the 10th. We also offer software training for the InCommon Trusted Access Platform. We have Midpoint coming up next week, and then Grouper. And then we offer Co-Manage and Shibboleth as well. These classes are offered regularly throughout the year. Today, we're going to highlight the Collaboration Success Program. But then we do also have other opportunities for people to get involved. We have open support models, we have Slack channels. We're really excited to be bringing TechX back to you live this year. We'll be in December in Denver. And so that's where you can get involved with Camp and ACamp and really start to, work closely with your community peers out there. So again, we're going to focus a little bit about the Collaboration Success Program, which is by and large a planning and implementation support program. Today, you're going to hear the word community a lot. InCommon isn't just about software or certificates, Eduroam, or Federation. It really is about community. It's knowing that the solutions are going to be easier to find when you're not looking for them alone. And it's knowing that you have the resources that you need on hand to help to overcome your IAM challenges. And of course, it's making IAM friends and connecting with them, and then ultimately being in a position that you're able to give back and help others. And that is truly what the CSP is all about. It's people coming together to learn, to prepare, to implement, and then to give back to the community. So this is a table that will summarize some of the benefits of the Collaboration Success Program, and I'll just take a minute or two here to run through this. Again, if you have questions, please pop them in the chat window. I think I'm able to see that and hopefully not lose myself. But the Collaboration Success Program, or the CSP, features a variety of benefits to help participants get up and running. So you'll see here that this covers everything from learning, collaboration, tools, and getting access to the right people. So one of the first things that we do during this program is we have a deep dive session in September. So we'll ask participants to come in, share what they hope to take away from the program, and we have CSP community and experts on hand to offer advice and share lessons learned. We'll then convene in virtual workshops regularly to share our plans, remove any blockers, and help share lessons learned with one another. All of our participants are added to a dedicated Slack channel so that they can easily connect with one another through program alumni, developers, instructors, and other experts. As I mentioned, we've got Basecamp coming up. So that is something that would be included as part of this program. So folks who were to register before June 6th, you could be able to send 2 people live to our virtual Basecamp workshop. And then we do offer the rest of your team access to that recorded content as part of the program. I mentioned the software training. And so as part of the CSP subscription, you'll actually receive 8 training registrations to the Uncommon Trusted Access Platform series. So you could pick and choose your way right through Shibboleth, Grouper, Midpoint, and Co-Manage. And you'll also get discounts for life. So anything above and beyond those 8 seats, you get discounted rates. Another feature that we've added in is that each participant, each campus or a research org who joins us gets their own their hosted workbench that would contain all of the Trusted Access Platform components pre-wired together along with sample sources of record. So it's a great place to go in and model your plans and explore any case studies that you might be working on. Throughout the fall, we'll go through a DevOps series so you can learn about why we love containers, some of our DevOps basics, working in the cloud, working on-prem. And then perhaps probably one of the most popular things is that we get together weekly and we have office hours. Sometimes we just have an open floor where people bring questions about anything that they're working on. Other times we have alumni come back and share their case studies. So as you can see, these collaborations, we'll try our best to make sure that you're never alone as you progress your IAM plans. And then afterwards, you would still, as our alumni, as some of our folks here, you would still maintain your access to the CSP Slack channel and then also attending office hours. So we truly try to keep you engaged as long as we can. So to date, we're coming up on our 5th year this year, and we've had 26 different organizations join us. And we've actually this year had 4 alumni come back, and actually 2 of those alumni you'll hear from today. They're repeating for a 2nd time right now. These alumni that you're going to hear from today will be, again, Texas, SLAC, and Charlotte. And next, we'd like to introduce you to our panelists. First up, I will let Grady introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Grady Bailey. I'm from the University of Texas at Austin. I'm a senior software engineer on our identity and access management team here at UT Austin. And I also serve as the team lead for our authentication and directory services sub-team. Our campus is quite large compared to various other peers around the country. We have over 50,000 students, close to 4,000 faculty, 13,000 staff, and that's just on-campus populations. Because we are also the flagship institution for the UT system, we engage a lot with UT system folks, with folks from other system campuses, as well as people across the country who may not be directly affiliated with the University of Texas at Austin, but have a connection to a program on campus or organization that's housed at campus. I would rate our IAM maturity level at about a 3. We have a pretty mature IAM program, but with that maturity comes a lot of technical debt. We have a lot of systems that work really well and have been working really well for a long time, a lot of processes that work well, but we need to improve them. We've got a lot of room for improvement, and that's part of the reason why we joined the CSP. And as far as the Trusted Access Platform, we're in progress in deploying Grouper and Midpoint from the Trusted Access Platform. We have a project that we kicked off that was our main reason for joining the CSP. But we actually deployed the Shibboleth Trusted Access Platform back in September 2019. Prior to us actually joining the CSP, we managed to find some of those great community resources and use those to build our own Trusted Access Platform deployment of Shibboleth. We used the case studies from previous CSP participants and a lot of the information that was just out there and made available to the community, best practices and things like that. And that helped shape our authentication service.
Great, thanks, Grady. All right, Lacey.
Hey everyone, I'm Lacey Vickery from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, and I'm an IAM architect. We actually are the 2nd largest institution in the UNC system, which I don't think a lot of people realize that. 30,000 plus enrolled students. So we're dealing with a lot of different different types of students, and there's a lot of affiliations with local community colleges and local elementary schools for the teaching program. I would rate our maturity level at a 3. We have mostly automated processes for onboarding and provisioning, but there's still some manual things that happen, especially for deprovisioning accounts. So I'm thinking a 3 is probably about where we fit. And we have a lot of custom built scripts and processes that we hope to kind of streamline and bring into the InCommon TAP fold. So as far as the components that we have Shibboleth, and that's been deployed on campus now for many years. It's our primary authentication system. It has been. We have over 200 service providers, and we're part of the InCommon Federation as well as the UNC Federation, which is all the UNC system schools. And since that was our initial investment, I guess, in the InCommon TAP components, and based on that experience and our experience with the consortium, we decided to deploy Grouper 2 years ago, and we joined the CSP program for that implementation. And it's in production now. It's not super widely used yet. I think it's still kind of ramping up, partly because we're looking at integrating it more closely with Midpoint before it's like too widely adopted across campus. So for this CSP, we're focusing on Midpoint. We had a domain name change recently from uncc.edu to charlotte.edu, which is involving redoing all of our backend systems, including email, Active Directory. And we're going to use that opportunity to deploy Midpoint to provision the new charlotte.edu Active Directory. So I think that's my highlights.
Cool. Thanks, Lacey. And Bruce.
Yes, hi. I'll unmute myself, yes. So yes, my name is Bruce Vincent. I'm the Director of Identity Services and Middleware for the SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory. SLAC is a Department of Energy basic research laboratory operated by Stanford University. So all of the employees all the staff of SLAC are actually Stanford employees. So we're the different one of the mix here. So it's probably a nice representation of some other kind of an institution that, although we're strongly affiliated with Stanford University, we're operated separately. And so our mission is really basic research, pure basic research, as opposed to a teaching institution principally. That doesn't mean there isn't a lot of overlap. So in fact, a lot of the folks that do basic research at SLAC are strongly affiliated with Stanford University in an academic or research capacity. And we also have actually a larger population of individuals that come and use the facilities of SLAC for basic research. So they may be other Department of Energy labs, other basic research institutions domestically, and we have a lot of international visiting scientists as well. So the profile of our community, if you will, is of our customers is perhaps a little bit different mix than exists in higher ed institutions. We also have a compliance context that's both DOE and university specific. So we have to sort of toe the line on both sides of that. And relative to the trusted access platform components, I would say, let me back up to the maturity level. It's somewhat arbitrary. I think we are basically at a 3 in terms of we're certainly doing a lot of identity management we have for years with legacy infrastructure. We're doing a big swap out, a multi-year effort of basically changing out and modernizing all of our core IAM infrastructure. So we're aspirationally a 5, maturity level 5, but I would say, objectively, we're probably at a 3. So in terms of the TAP components, the trusted access platform components, Stanford and consequently SLAC have been using Shibboleth directly and indirectly for many, many years. So So it's the core of the university's Web Single Sign-On and Federation, and has been as an identity provider for a long, long time. SLAC is now leveraging that more directly in what it's doing, but with some variations that we probably can get into later if we want to. But we're certainly currently working on lighting up both grouper and midpoint instances, and we've recently also kicked off an effort to stand up a co-manage instance. So basically the entire menu, our plate's full. So I think that's a roundup of what SLAC's about.
Great, thanks, Bruce. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so next I'm going to work through a few questions for our panelists, and I'll continue to watch the Slack channel. And we have one question coming up, which I think everybody will probably address a little bit more in their questions, but I'll go ahead and put it out there. Grady and Lacey be willing to share how large their IAM teams are, similar to larger in size than us, and I'm curious what it takes to manage, support, and dev in the tech components employed. So I don't know if we want to weave those into some of the answers that we're going to have, because I think that might be relevant in our questions, but we will certainly get there. Okay, so number one, why did you get involved with Internet 2 in Common? We'll start with you, Grady.
So our involvement with Internet 2 in Common actually dates long back to before I joined the Identity and Access Management team here. We've been a member of the In Common Federation. We've used the certificate service. You know, that long predates me, but the way we came about to the CSP and our more close collaboration is really we were building our new we were rebuilding our primary authentication service on campus. We were working to consolidate. We had two separate authentication services. We were working to consolidate to a single new enterprise-grade authentication service. We selected Shibboleth because we had some experience with it. We already had a Shibboleth deployment. And so we were looking at ways to deploy Shibboleth in a modern way. And I found the Trusted Access Platform with containerized Shibboleth, and then I found the CSP case studies that existed at the time, and I went reading about what were these other institutions doing to deploy Shibboleth in a modern and secure way, and how is it better than what we were already doing on campus? And that's kind of what led us down that path. We used those resources to design our enterprise authentication service, and then once we had the time and resources available, we joined the CSP, and that's why we joined this most recent cohort. And I expect we will continue to collaborate for the foreseeable future as much as we can, because it's been a great resource for us, and we hope that the lessons we've learned can be shared to other people as well.
Great, thanks, Grady.
So for UNC Charlotte, I think probably much like Grady, some of the involvement in Common kind of predates me, and Jerome and certificates have been on campus for a while. But as far as the IAM team, we were, I think it was a directive from the general administration to deploy Shibboleth across all the UNC system campuses for interoperability in our UNC online portal, which all the campuses use. So it was through that we, became acquainted with the TAP components and Shibboleth. We found a lot of use in that for a single sign-on solution. So that has grown to be our primary authentication method across campus. And it's kind of grown since then. We're looking at a registry system. Currently, all of our users are in Banner, and it's been proposed that we split that out and get guests and other sort of loosely affiliated accounts out of Banner. So that is kind of what led us down the road of TAP components, and researching that and realizing that the CSP was a program that we could get involved in to kind of figure out how the different components can work together. And so we joined a couple years ago and are doing it again.
Cool, thank you.
And I would say that with respect to Stanford, the Stanford University side of things, I mean, I was at Stanford University for many years. And so Stanford's been heavily involved in the Internet 2 community and in Common Federation since early days. And I mean, I would say why I'm involved and why I continue to be involved as part of the SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory with both Internet 2 and in Common is because basic research and supporting basic research is all about trust relationships between different collaborating individuals and organizations. And so the formal trust relationships and the plumbing is all there in Internet 2 and in Common to support those key needs and that core mission. Over time, my interest in and involvement with Internet 2 and in Common has been very much mapping the modernization and the sort of the fleshing out of the catalog of services and products. And so, as was mentioned before, I mean, it's certainly all those individual services, but it's a community that understands and has a shared way of practice, and so it has similar needs, and so it's the best place to get a lot of questions answered. So that's how I see it.
Awesome. So would one of you be willing to field the question? Somebody, Jim Lawson has asked if somebody could explain maturity level 3, and they're wondering if that would map to capability maturity model, or what does maturity levels mean in this situation?
So I think you could map it to the same kind of idea as the capability maturity model. I don't know that there's a direct one-to-one, but again, you know, I said I would put us at a 3. What we've found in our experience with others is that our processes are very very mature, but it's a lot of the underlying stuff that that may require some improvement. So 3 is, you know, I think in one of our chats before this, we said 3 is a solid C, and by that I mean it's a passing grade. We're doing well enough to get by. There aren't critical issues, but there's definitely room for improvement. I think that's why I put us at a 3 and how I would read a 3. Does that make sense is that where everyone else was as well, pretty much?
Yeah, I think so. It is a little confusing because there's the maturity level, I think, as it relates technically to like Docker builds. And I don't really see this as that. I know that like with Grouper, they'll talk a lot about what's your Docker maturity level. But I feel like this is more about the processes, and we have a decent amount of automation. In one place where I think the automation is lacking is deprovisioning. And we recently did, I guess, an assessment as part of the CSP, and they kind of came back with that to maturity level 3. We could improve on some of the processes, but all the basics are there. And so it's kind of a matter of documentation at this point, I think. But yeah, I can't give a solid answer, unfortunately.
And I would just add, it's a similar thing. It's a completely relative thing, and we've got a long way to go. We've certainly got a long way to go to improve what infrastructure we're working on. So, but obviously we need to and do manage identities in a pretty formal way for all our strongly affiliated and more transitionally affiliated folks.
I would actually just add to that one area I think that we are lacking is the identity assurance levels. And I don't know if you get to the different identity assurance levels if you bump yourself up to the next maturity level. I think that's part of why I would say that we're at a 3 and not higher. And that's kind of a newer topic, but I don't think all of our identity proofing is up to snuff to meet those requirements right now.
Awesome. Thank you all. Okay, I'm going to move along to the next question. What specifically led you to the Collaboration Success Program? I think some of you might have corrected and highlighted this a little bit during your intro, but anything you would like to elaborate on?
So I touched on this in my intro and in my why, you know, how I got to it common. But honestly, it all comes back to the specifically the case studies. The case studies that were created and were made available from past CSP participants. And actually, I should go back and look. I feel like I may have used some of the things made available by UNC Charlotte from a past CSP participation. I can't remember which ones I specifically used, but it was the case studies and the resources that were made available by past participants that helped us build our enterprise authentication service on trusted access platform Shibboleth, and get that deployed in a more modern, more mature manner than our existing Shibboleth deployment. And just knowing that those are the resources that came out of the CSP, I was, folks on my team can attest to this. I was in my manager's ear about joining the CSP for about a year and a half, because of how valuable that was for us. And then when we had the time and resources to do so, we went ahead and we joined, and that's how we got here.
Great, thanks, Grady. How about you, Lacey?
Yeah, I think our case studies are probably around Grouper and Docker, but that's interesting to hear. So I think like I mentioned before, we kind of got started with the CSP looking for a registry system, and we didn't end up deploying co-managed. We ended up using the initial CSP round for Grouper, which we kind of knew that we needed at some point. But I think it was kind of, we were just researching different registry solutions and data structures and came across the CSP and having a lot of trust in common from the Shibboleth deployments, it seemed like a good fit. And then as far as joining a second time, we found it really valuable to have the subject matter expert meetings and the SLAC channels. So, it seems like a pretty good program for exploring different options. And it's really flexible as far as we've changed our project plan several times. And it's flexible as far as that goes too. So I think we kind of stumbled across it initially.
And for SLAC, I mean, the CSP program is just in time, I have to say, because there's been a desire for sort of getting up to speed about these especially these software packages, but also as Grady said, the use cases. I mean, really the deployment, all the different permutations that you can have with these, not just these trusted access platform components, but with, of course, legacy software we have, and whether that's purchased or home built or whatever. I mean, the other thing about the CSP program, it gives a formal structure for training, but also a community that's even more focused and tightly pointed at the IAM, the needs around IAM and the use around these specific software packages. And so, I mean, it's a fantastic way to get ramped up training that you might associate with vendor software as well, except that in this case, nobody's selling you anything, which is a fantastic way to partner with peer institutions that are facing similar problems. And just warts and all, you can talk about the things that you're experiencing with your own deployments and the things you're trying to improve upon. People are freely sharing amongst peer institutions in the CSP. And so, I mean, there's just no downsides, and it's a huge value from my point of view.
I want to echo, because Bruce, you said the magic word, which was training. That was a huge thing for us. So prior to joining the CSP, I had been to the Shibboleth training back when I first joined the IAM team here. I went to the shibboleth training put on by Uncommon and Internet 2. That was kind of our general onboarding for folks who were going to be running our shibboleth service, was going to that training. And then, like, with how good that training was, knowing that, oh, as joining the CSP includes training seats for all of these other components that fit our needs, and training that we would probably do anyway, even if we weren't joining the CSP. It was, I mean, it made joining the CSP, I mean, honestly, like there was no question that it was valuable.
I didn't mention the collaboration part, but that's definitely been huge. And just knowing that there's not really a vendor solution, I think, that fits most higher ed IAM needs. It's really a unique service, I think, that's provided. So hearing other schools facing the same challenges and using the same ERP systems, the same issues with authentication, and I think it's definitely a very unique space that hasn't been filled by a vendor, at least.
Cool, thank you, everybody. Okay, next question. Tell us a little bit about your CSP project work.
All right. So at UT Austin, what we're undergoing is as our main focus for the CSP is what we're calling our IGA Modernization Project. IGA being Identity Governance and Administration, everything that has to do with managing an identity, not authentication, but the management of those identities. So Midpoint and Grouper are squarely in focus for this. We're looking at standing up Midpoint and Grouper, and working to retire entirely, or at least diminutize our legacy custom homegrown IGA solution that is a 15-year-old Java application that has had multiple developers come and go, and it's getting long in the tooth. So we want to modernize and deploy Midpoint, deploy Grouper, and start bringing up those tools to replace the functions of this legacy application, and use stuff that's in use by the community, not something that we've written in-house, because it's very difficult to support something that you write in-house and try and support for many years. So that's what our CSP project is bringing up Midpoint and Grouper and working to modernize our entire IGA stack.
For us, this go around, we're focusing on Midpoint, but there's a lot more background work to that. In particular, we have a registry system that has been expanding over the years and syncing data from different sources. So that kind of we've been working on that to feed Midpoint and Grouper, but primarily we're working on getting Midpoint and Grouper talking to each other to provision users to the new charlotte.edu Active Directory. And as part of that, we'll also have Shibboleth updated to a new scope to support that. We'll probably have a different IDP running for a while. So we're just kind of trying to get a handle on all those different moving pieces for this CSP.
And with SLAC, Lacey, were you done? I just wanted to,
yes.
I didn't mean to jump in. Okay. So with respect to SLAC, the CSP project work is really, I think it's a variation of maybe what Grady mentioned at UT Austin it's really a fundamental replacement. It's an IAM modernization. And so the strategy that we're taking is, I guess, a little bit more front to back, in the sense that we're starting with augmenting the capability of our single sign-on and federated authentication infrastructure with the university's help, obviously, to include SLAC specific attributes that we're feeding into the flow of the authentications to do all kinds of DOE specific things that we're doing in our lab context. But then we are also, as I mentioned, deploying Grouper, and so that's not far behind in terms of it's being sort of fleshing out the story of group membership and things. And so as we're doing this, we're systematically sort of functionally decomposing a bunch of legacy infrastructure and mapping that into our new infrastructure, but obviously wildly broadly enhancing the capabilities of what we're able to do because of the capabilities of modern software and also being able to truly support federation and federated namespace in ways that our provincial software obviously was never meant were never meant to support. So I think justifiably when we're doing a wholesale work like that, our participation in the CSP 2 years running is sort of understandable. We obviously can do only so much at a time, and we're paddling as fast as we can under the water to get this stuff going while not breaking stuff in terms of the lab processes and onboarding folks and offboarding folks and all of that kind of stuff that we need to do. So really the focus in the second year has really been about productionizing a bunch of stuff that we designed on the front end, and then sort of systematically, like I said, front to back as we go back to the registries that we're sort of starting to now fundamentally redesign and get ready to modernize as well.
Great, thanks, Bruce. So the next question we have, and I would like to actually bring back Michael Zimmer had asked the question about if folks would be interested in or willing to share how large their IAM teams are and what it takes to manage or support the different TAP components employed. So maybe we could bake that into, alongside here, what's next for your IAM team.
I guess I can go ahead and start off. So our IAM team at UT Austin, we have 15 people on our team, but that is supporting 10, more than 10 actually, services, from directories to authentication services to our some legacy applications that run services connected to the mainframe at UT Austin. As well as things that we're working to retire. So it's a matter of not just bringing up the trusted access platform components, but also spinning down and keeping the lights on for things that aren't connected to the trusted access platform. So what's next for us is we're working to again get Midpoint and Grouper up and running and modernize our IGA stack. Then we're hoping to retire our legacy applications that are handling group and role management right now. We want to implement the Midpoint and Grouper for group and role management, retire our existing group and role management tools. Then we're going to migrate our password management out of our custom tooling. Password management, we want to have that handled in Midpoint. All of the identity management, we eventually want to move over into Midpoint and slowly reduce how much we're relying on our homegrown app, and then eventually retire that entirely, or at least break it into tiny microservices that all it does is it communicates with the mainframe and Midpoint communicates with it, something like that. So that's where we're going. We also, of course, we want to improve our authentication side. We need to implement OpenID Connect in our enterprise authentication service over in Shibboleth. That's on our roadmap over there, and just modernizing even further our Shibboleth deployment. We implemented everything on Docker Swarm. We want to move that over into a managed Kubernetes deployment rather than relying on Docker Swarm, which is kind of outdated at this time, but that's where we're looking to go.
For us, we have 6 people total in IAM. However, at least 2 people are mostly focused more on some of our legacy applications that have been carried over. Like, for example, we maintain the student portal and Google Apps. So I think as far as TAP components, it's kind of we kind of have one person per component type setup currently, and there's some overlap, but that's what we're working with now. As far as where we're headed, once we get the new domain provisioning and the new systems, we hope to eventually retire our legacy provisioning system, which is a paid vendor product in support of Midpoint. And then also along with that, moving our guest accounts to a separate system. I'm not sure yet if it'll be co-managed, but we're looking at that to get those accounts out of the ERP system and be able to support lower identity assurance levels, or really different, I guess, identity assurance levels. So that's definitely on our radar for the upcoming. But the biggest things right now would be to get our non-student, non-staff accounts out of Banner and decommission our current provisioning system.
And so at SLAC, I would say in terms of core staff that are doing IAM things, it's about 9, but I would say that there's a whole bunch of legacy custom coding that is being supported in that mix as well, which is coming in handy because those folks obviously know where the data is buried, and actually the logic embedded in this legacy infrastructure, which is critical to have that institutional insight. But the identity the identity organization at SLAC also includes endpoint engineering for the reason of kind of like zero trust and thinking in terms of the future of that. It's not just about people we have to do identity management for, it's stuff too, it's things, services, all of that as well. So that's in the mix. And I think it's important to stress that also, however well we can do this in terms of automation and self-serve, there's a fairly big footprint on, at least at SLAC, in terms of the impact on the service desk, in terms of the front line, first tier of questions that get answered and stuff. And so obviously a big goal that we have at SLAC in terms of modernization is to really have folks to be able to solve their own problems whenever possible, because it's no fun to have to be working at the service desk and asking the same question over and over again about password resets and thus and such, right? Things that we obviously need to drive more automation into and improve the data quality. So a lot of the modernization of the infrastructure hopefully will kind of recapture some of the efficiencies that we can get, not necessarily to reduce the number of staff, but to be able to do a whole lot more with the infrastructure and the services in IAM.
Great, thank you, Bruce. That's all the questions we had. I'm going to give you a little bit more info about some other ways to get connected, but did anyone in the audience have any other questions for our panelists? Okay, I'm going to keep on going. So thank you again to all the panelists. So now that we've met some of our community, and learned a little bit about, In Common, we'll hope that you'll be able, and have some interest in connecting with us further. So you've learned a lot about the CSP, and so we're excited that our expression of window is open right now. So if you'd like to learn more about the program, you can go to incommon.org/academy/CSP. If you're interested, there is a brief questionnaire. The link is here, and we can drop those in the chat window here in just a moment for you too. Thank you, Netta. This is not a commitment. If you're interested, you can fill out the expression of interest form, and I will reach out and set up a time to talk so we can learn a little bit more about your interest in the program and what you're working on, and see how we might be able to help and see if it's a match. So if you're ready to go on from there, then certainly we can give you information about how to sign up and answer any of your questions. As I mentioned, Basecamp is coming up, and so you can look for that on June 6th through the 10th. It is virtual, but we do meet live for half days the entire week. So this is a great opportunity to connect with In Common, our subject matter experts, our developers, a lot of the CSP people you met today, and other alumni and community folks will be there as well. Thank you for joining this April IAM session. We'd love your feedback in a short survey, and we'll continue to deliver timely topics to our community. So if there's no further questions, we will go ahead and wrap up. Thank you everyone for coming.